So I'm going to talk about aliens, but before I do that, we had a little bit of interesting news today that's Kindred relevant, and I wanted to share it with you because I'm pretty proud of it. Okay, so my previous company was D-Wave. I'll just show you a couple things. We build what are still the world's only quantum computers that you can buy. And the company, D-Wave, has been doing this. Thanks. So this is one of them. This is one of the processors. And a lot of interesting things happened to me over the years there. I got sent pajamas, a whole bunch of stuff. You know, there's lots of interesting things that happen when you build something like a quantum computer. But just as an aside, because I thought it was funny, one of the interesting things that's happened from the D-Wave story is there's this gigantic conspiracy that's arisen on the internet.
Okay, I want you to pay very close attention to what he says here and what's missing as to what he's saying here. So pay attention.
That goes like this. So D-Wave builds quantum computers. The way that they work, if you know how this works, is one of the interpretations is that you tap into these parallel universes and they do computations. Sounds really weird. But what's happened is this idea has been hijacked to describe something called the Mandela effect, which is this thing where the past changes. So think about something you know to be true from the past. And then imagine you went out on the internet and you can't find it at all. It's not there. It doesn't match with your experience. So these people think that D-Wave is responsible, and CERN. And of course, the quantum key to the abyss factors into it somehow. I'm not exactly sure how.
Okay, did you catch what was missing? He explained how those that see the Mandela effect and how it connects to D-Wave and CERN. He explained how it connects to the abyss, but he did not give a defense against it. And within his own answer, although he kind of tried to walk around the whole deal, he basically confirmed it for us. For if he had a defense, if even just a statement of denial, but he didn't even do that. As a matter of fact, while I was going back through my data from other videos, I brought up the Geordie Rose speech that he gave several years ago on D-Wave, and he speaks about this. And as a matter of fact, he tells you that they're pulling information out from another dimension to effectively change our reality. And I'm going to play that clip right after this. So hold on.
This quote is from a respectable scientist, in fact, one of the founders of this field, that may look a little strange to you who don't follow theoretical physics, but there is a very clear prediction that our most successful theory of nature makes, and that is that there are an enormous number, mind-bogglingly large number, of parallel realities, as real as this one, that have different consistent histories. So imagine a world where all of the laws of physics as we know them are obeyed, but different decisions were made along the way. We can dive into them and grab their resources and pull them back into ours to make an effect in our world.
Now, I brought up this one piece. I'll probably play more of this video that he did from D-Wave later on in this video. But what he speaks about is digging into this alternate dimension and how this dimension is so much similar to ours, yet there are differences. And they're pulling out these resources to effectively change ours. He himself, in his own words, from back when he did his D-Wave, his speech, was telling you that they're pulling out these resources to change our reality. Now we come to this speech that he's giving for Kindred in Vancouver, and he kind of lays it out, but he doesn't deny it. He doesn't put any defense towards it. And we dig back to his prior speech, and we find in that speech he confirms the Mandela effect. You understand what I'm talking about?
Okay, so that's just D-Wave. I did that for about 15 years. It was a lot of fun. A big science project that we turned into a commercial entity.
What you're reading right here, what they posted up in this video, is a statement that is based upon what's called Moore's Law. Now, Moore's Law is that technology will double every 18 to 24 months. Now, Geordie Rose, in a prior video, and I'm going to put the insert into this from his speech that he gave for D-Wave about what the D-Wave quantum computers have done to Moore's Law and how they've broken it to where Moore's Law is no longer a law because they're doubling in technology every 3 to 6 months, totally smashing this. So the numbers that you're looking at in this statement is based upon a law that has been proven false by the D-Wave quantum computers. Let's continue. Now, to further this, you have to understand this clip that I'm about to show you came from 2010, 7 years ago. The numbers have drastically changed. Back then, they were talking about every 12 months, every year. They were doubling. We have gone far beyond that. As they have doubled in the qubits within the D-Wave systems, they have drastically changed the numbers for which Moore's Law was initially based upon. We are far beyond what they're saying, but in this clip that I'm going to play for you right now, he's telling you what they've done to Moore's Law. Here's that clip.
We've been doing this for some time now, and in fact, we have our own version of Moore's Law. The doubling of the number of these qubits on the chip has happened once a year for the past 9 years. So for the last 9 years, every year, the number of these qubit devices has doubled, and it will continue to do so.
Now get that. In 2010, they were telling you that Moore's Law that stated every 18 to 24 months, technology doubles. What they're doing now, back in 2010, and even for the 9 years before that, they were saying every year, every 12 months, they doubled. And that was back when the D-Wave systems and the qubits that they were based upon was 512. Right now, they're at 2,048. That number has drastically changed to where technology is doubling every 3 to 6 months, which means what they were telling you will happen in 20, 30, 40, 50 years from now is now 2 to 3 years. You get that? I know there's a pause here. And what I've been doing in this video is I've been kind of cutting out the pauses, but this one here is like big time because we're talking about prophecy being fulfilled before our very eyes at such a drastic level. And we go back to the eclipse that happened on Elul 1. We go through the 33 days, which led to the Revelation 12 sign. We go through 7 more days of purification, which leads to the Day of Atonement. This is where we're at, people. Let's continue on.
That was a warm-up for Kindred. So Kindred is much, much, much more ambitious than D-Wave. And what Kindred is trying to do is build real AI. So what you've heard about AI is not what we mean by AI. Well,
now, I stopped this video one more time because I wanted you to pay attention at his t-shirt. This company that they're starting with the AI. And you look on his t-shirt, you're seeing the snake eating its tail. What is that? That's called the Ouroboros. What is the Ouroboros? The Ouroboros comes from ancient Egypt, which actually leads back to ancient Babylon. And it is about order out of chaos. In other words, creation recreating itself. And this is what Geordie Rose is all about, what his companies are doing. He is totally influenced by connection with fallen angels and fallen angel technology. And he is just advancing all of this into our world, following the Ouroboros. He is a deceived man. But through his deception, he is continuing prophecy as recorded in the scripture. Let's go on.
What we mean by AI is a software system that can do literally anything that a human can do. Literally anything. And obviously, computers are better at things than people in lots of different ways. So now imagine, not only can they do everything that a human can do, but they can do everything that the best human at any task could do better than them. So imagine there was the mental Olympics of the 100-meter dash, and Usain Bolt is the fastest person. Now imagine that's some kind of a mental thing, like writing a novel or writing whatever. Imagine now that the thing is so much faster than Usain Bolt. Like, for example, it's a spaceship, yeah? It's still doing the same thing, but it's doing it so much better because we're limited, because we're people. So what Kindred is trying to do is solve this problem. How do you build machines that are better than people at everything? Now, there's a mental block that we have here when we think about this. Because when you think about that, one of your questions might be, for example, what are the applications of this? So imagine this. Imagine, for $10, let's say, I could build a machine, like a little robot that had fingers and eyes and all that. And it could do your job better than you, no matter what it is. And I could sell that to your employer for, say, $15 and make a profit, instead of having to pay you $100,000 a year. Now imagine that was true for every single job. So that's what we're talking about here, is a complete and utter transformative change that of the likes of which has never been seen before in the history of humanity, making the Industrial Revolution look like a little tiny blip on the path that humans have taken from when we emerged from the ooze a few billion years ago. We are right on the verge of that transition now. So this guy, Rich Sutton, is one of the most famous people in the academic world of AI, and like many, when asked, when will this happen? He says things like this: 25% chance within 13 years of this thing that I'm talking about.
Once again, this is based upon the standardized Moore's Law of 18 to 24 months of technology doubling. We are beyond that. We are now at every 3 to 6 months due to the quantum D-Wave computers and how this filters in to what they're doing with Kindred. Things are changing at an astronomically amazing level. And as a matter of fact, as we go further into this video, he's going to tell you exactly what they're doing to distract your attention to the reality of what's really going on.
You know, when you think about what you read on the news, you know, CNN, BuzzFeed, whatever, they're all kind of the same nowadays. Think about how unimportant that thing is that you're reading if this is true. So what does this have to do with aliens? So Sam Harris, who I quite admire, is a very interesting guy, was reciting this parable at a TED Talk that he was giving, and it goes something like this. So say I'm the President of the United States. So I receive this message from the heavens. So my microwave dish, my SETI dish, finally captures something. And what it says is, in 50 years, or 13 years, we're coming to your planet. You got to be ready. Now just imagine what would happen if that happened. A super intelligent alien race beamed down a message to all of us Earthlings saying, we're coming July 13th, 2030, and boy, you better be ready because the mothership is landing right on the front lawn of the White House or wherever you wanted to land on that day. The amount of resources that would be marshaled to try to figure out what to do would encompass the whole world. AI is just like that. So when this thing that I'm talking about happens, it's going to be exactly the thing that you're thinking about those super intelligent AIs. So the one thing I can tell you is they're not going to be like us. So alien means, you know, different. These things that we're building are not going to be people. They might be really smart, they might be really good at all sorts of different things, but they're not going to be like us. They're going to be aliens. And they're going to be, I'm sorry to say, way smarter than every single person in this room, in ways that we can't even comprehend. So this, of course, triggers a lot of alarm. One of the guys who talks about this is Elon, who says things like this, like, when you do this, beware. Because you think, just like the guy in the stories, that when you do this, you're going to put that that little guy in a pentagram, and you're going to have your holy water out, and you're going to wave it at the thing, and by God, it's going to do exactly what you say and not one thing more, but it never works out that way. So this is an attitude that some are having, this emerging alarmism about the way this is going to go. But these words, demons, doesn't capture the essence of what's happening.
Here he is literally telling you straight out truth. Demons, you got to understand, there are those that may disagree with me on this, but there are many that understand and agree with what I'm going to tell you. That the Nephilim, when they were destroyed, they became your demons, our demons that inhabit this world right now. The fallen angels are not demons. The fallen angels are just that. And what he's talking about, what they're connecting to, this ancient race that they're getting this technologies from, these entities that are instructing them on how to do this. These are the watchers. These are the fallen angels. They're connected. They're talking to them. This is where they're getting all the information to do the things that they got to do to bring them into our world. Let's continue.
I don't know if any of you are turn-of-the-century weird fiction fans, but there's this guy named H.P. Lovecraft.
Now you need to pay very close attention to what he's talking about here. And if you don't know who H.P. Lovecraft is, Google H.P. Lovecraft. You really need to know this because he's now connecting what they're doing with the occult. He's now connecting what H.P. Lovecraft came onto and what he was introduced to. And he explains what the fallen angels are from what he learned. You got to understand, H.P. Lovecraft was a heavily fallen angel, demonically influenced person. As a matter of fact, both his mother and father, while raising him, were committed for being insane because they went nuts because of what their son was involved in. Listen further.
Who's a very famous American weird fiction author. And he espoused a view which is called cosmicism. And the essence of cosmicism is cosmic indifference. So what he was saying is basically, yes, there are these massively intelligent entities out there, but they're not good, they're not evil. They just don't give a shit about you even in the slightest. The same way that you don't care about an ant is the same way they're not going to care about you.
Now, so far, Jordy has been talking about the creation of AI. They're building these artificial intelligence software. Now, he actually steps in and tells you what they're actually doing, and you're going to hear it out of his own mouth. And I'm going to repeat this in this video 3 different times so that you can actually hear and pay attention to what he's actually saying, to what they're really doing. This is very, very important, and you need to pay attention. So listen closely.
And these things that we're summoning into the world now, and these things that we're summoning into the world now, and these things that we're summoning into the world now.
Okay, there is a major difference between creating something, software, and summoning something into this world. I played that 3 times so that you could kind of catch what he's saying. And we're going to go further. When you listen to further what he's saying, your jaw should be on the floor to realize if you're not awake and this is beyond you and you're like, well, you know, I'm just a conspiracy theorist, wake up. This is really happening. And these are the people that are involved with the fallen angels that are bringing them into our world. Listen to what he said. If you need to rewind, step back and listen again to what he's saying, do so. I would actually suggest you rewind and watch this whole video 2, 3 times to catch what's actually going on. because you really, really, really need to wake up. Let's go on.
Are not demons, they're not evil, but they're more like the Lovecraftian great old ones. There are entities that are not necessarily going to be aligned with what we want. So this transition is really, really massively important for our entire species to navigate. And going back to that thing that Sam Harris was saying, nobody is paying attention. This thing is happening in the background while people bicker about politics and what's going to be in the healthcare plan in the US. And underneath it all is this rising tsunami that, if we're not careful, is going to wipe us all out.
Bingo! Out of the man's own mouth. He's telling you all this stuff that you're seeing, all this fake news, all this stuff that's going on that you're constantly being barraged in the news as to LBGQ, LBGQP now. They keep adding letters because they keep adding more sexual perversions. What's everything you keep seeing, all these things that are coming up on the news, it's to catch your attention. What's going on with healthcare? What's Trump's doing? What's going on in North Korea? All of this stuff is a distraction while they're setting all of this up so that when they bring it upon the world, boom! But you've already been pre-programmed through Hollywood, through music, through the news, through all of it, so that this is like, oh, okay, so what are the next level? People, you need to wake up and listen to what people like Jordy is telling you. Get off the distraction. Shut that TV off. Quit listening to all the things about America being great again, about what's going on in the world, and all the distractions that are blinding you for what is really, really going on. And he just told you in his own words the distractions that is being placed before your own face and your own eyes to get you to look away from what's really happening. It amazes me that the mass populations, they have no clue. Those of us that have been woken up, we're awake to what's going on. We can't go back to sleep. We're awake. You can't erase out what we already know. And now we're trying to tell you. Let's let Jordy continue.
So, on that pleasant note, we're hiring people to try to make something like this happen. Of course, this is a very difficult project, of course. And I'm kind of a little bit tongue-in-cheek about all this, like, how bad things are, because it's not really like that. Technology is a double-edged sword. Even something like this, it's agnostic. It depends who wields it.
All right. What you've been watching is Jordy Rose speaking about the next level to where they've gone to. And where is all this leading to? We go back to Scripture and we go back to where it speaks about the beast being healed from a fatal, a deadly wound. And that the second beast creates an image and brings it to life. And that those who shall not worship the beast or the image of the beast shall be put to death. What is the image of the beast? This is AI. This is where it's going. This is what Sophia is all about. This is what Jordy Rose and his company is all doing, where it's all leading to. Now, I'm going to end this video with his speech that he gave with D-Wave, and pay very close attention to the things that he's speaking about. And I'm not going to interrupt it like I did with this first one. just pay attention and listen closely. You hear things that he speaks about, stop the video, rewind it, and re-listen, because this is where we are at in the timeline. Tribulation has begun. When we look at what's happened since Tabernacles till now, since the eclipse, August 21st, Elul 1, to the Revelation 12 sign that happened on 9/23, up to Day of Atonement, 7 days later. And everything is being brought to you that's all happening right now. It's just absolutely mind-blowing unless you're awake and you realize, I know what's happening. So I'm going to finish this out with Geordie Rose's speech that he did in 2010 on the D-Wave quantum computers. And if you've seen it, then fast forward through. But I will ask you, please share this video, like the video, and definitely subscribe to my channel so that any upwards, any more video, each video that I do, when I put them out, you'll be alerted to that the videos have come out. Pay attention, folks. These truly are the last days, and what they're doing is just mind-boggling that they don't even, maybe they do realize what they're doing, but it's prophecy being fulfilled before our very eyes. Peace, man. Love you all. And here's the other video from Geordie Rose talking about D-Wave. Peace.
But before I do that, I'm going to tell you a little bit about quantum computers and why people care so much about them. There are literally tens of thousands of some of the brightest people in the world today trying to build these machines and understand them. And I'm going to tell you why. In my last 15 years of working on this type of stuff, I found that scientists divide up into two categories of zealots about this field. The first half are people who are absolutely entranced by the physics of these things. This quote is from a respectable scientist, in fact, one of the founders of this field, that may look a little strange to you who don't follow theoretical physics, but there is a very clear prediction that our most successful theory of nature makes, and that is that there are an enormous number, mind-bogglingly large number, of parallel realities, as real as this one, that have different consistent histories. So imagine a world where all of the laws of physics as we know them are obeyed, but different decisions were made along the way. Different decisions at the level of tiny microscopic particles, different decisions all the way up to what you chose to eat for lunch, and whether you chose to come to the session or not. Quantum mechanics makes a very specific prediction that all of those are as real as the thing that you remember. And this is bizarre, because we don't see those other things. But science has reached the point now where we can build machines that exploit those other worlds. And quantum computers are perhaps the most exciting of all of these that we have within, or almost within our grasp right now. So people from a physics background love this. They want to understand the world. They want to understand the universe, how it all works. There's another type of person who tends to come from the computer science side that's like, yeah, okay, that's all great, but there's a different thing going on here which is just as exciting, if not more, and that these machines that supposedly can do this wild stuff, let's forget about how they work, if you could build one, could solve problems that you could never, ever solve with any computer of the sort that we build. If you took every single atom of silicon in the world and made the most sophisticated conventional Intel-style processor that you could build, there are problems we know of that I could write down on a sheet of paper that you could never, ever, ever solve with that thing, that you could with this kind of machine. So that's very exciting. Humans use tools to do things. If you give humans a new kind of tool that can do things that you couldn't otherwise do, Imagine the possibility. So you may think, well, this is all fine and dandy, but aren't these things in the realm of theory and speculation, kind of in the same regime as other futuristic things you may have heard of, which may be allowed by the laws of physics but aren't here yet? That's not true. There are in fact many of these machines deployed now in openly available research centers following the model that was used to introduce supercomputers to the world. They're too big and ornery and difficult to operate to put in your home, too expensive also, but you can give them to a place which will manage them as a shared resource that will offer that service to the world. And there are two of these now. One of them is at the University of Southern California. And this analogy with flight, I think, is an interesting one. So a horse can beat, or could beat, the initial flight of the Wright brothers' flight in speed. But a plane is not a faster horse. A plane is a different kind of machine. The plane takes advantage of another resource that nature gives us, this third dimension, in order to do something that matters to people better that you could do with any horse. It doesn't matter how fast you make a horse, it will never fly. At least the kinds of horses that we know about. So these types of computers now are being thought of in the same way. They're not terrifically powerful yet, but they're doing something completely different than what your computer does. And that thing is like flight. It gives these computers access to these new resources, maybe you could call them parallel universes, in order to do something that you couldn't otherwise do. And that's not the only one. In fact, the one I'm going to come back to and talk to in the context of the story that I'm wrapping this in was recently installed at NASA. And Google was the primary interested party that pulled this whole thing together. And this one is really exciting to me, because what they're going to do is apply this machine to an area that I think is fundamentally important. It's a crux of our future as humans. And that's, can we build machines like us? So building machines like us might be possible. I certainly believe it is. I might be wrong. But what I do know is that the types of approaches that people are taking now to build intelligent machines benefit immensely from what this machine that we've built does best. So what this center is about is applying this beautiful new computational idea in the service of trying to make intelligent machines. Now, I can't think of anything personally any cooler than trying to use quantum computers to build intelligent machines, so this is very exciting to me. Steve Jurvetson has been a longtime friend and investor in the company, and for those of you who don't know him, he's a Silicon Valley investor who's probably the smartest VC that I know of, and certainly the one that's the most attuned to technological trends. He's on the board of SpaceX, Tesla, Synthetic Genomics, which is Craig Venter's company that's trying to build artificial life, and D-Wave, and that's it. And this is his particularly poetic way of framing the difference between the machines we build and conventional computers. This is what they look like. There are two of them. These are from our lab in Burnaby in British Columbia. From the outside, they look like giant black monoliths. Big metal boxes, about 10 feet on a side, 12 feet tall. And they are powered, they have a fridge inside them, a refrigerator that cools these chips to almost absolute zero. Just a wisp, a fraction of a degree above absolute zero. Hundreds of times colder than interstellar space. Amongst the coldest and most isolated and extreme conditions that humans have ever been able to engineer. These fridges, interestingly enough, which are called pulse tube dilution refrigerators, have a thing called a pulse tube, which emits a sound roughly once per second, which sounds eerily like a heartbeat. So if you have the opportunity to stand next to one of these machines, it is an awe-inspiring thing, at least for me. It feels like an altar to an alien god. They really are impressive machine. At the heart of this big box is a tiny chip about the size of your thumbnail. And on this chip resides all of the wonder and magic that makes this thing go. I'm not going to describe in any mathematical detail how it all works, but let me give you an analogy. In quantum mechanics, there's this concept that a thing can exist in two states which are mutually exclusive at the same time, quote unquote. And I'm using those words because the English language was developed before we had concepts to describe what these things actually are doing. But I'm going to give you a roundabout way of understanding this. Imagine that there really are parallel universes out there, and now imagine you have two that are exactly identical in every respect, all the way out to the horizon as far as we can see, see down to the last little atomic detail of every single thing with only one difference, and that's the value of a little thing called a qubit on this chip. It's a contraction of quantum bit. And that qubit is very much like a bit or a transistor in a conventional computer. It has two distinct physical states, which we call 0 and 1 for bit. In a conventional computer, these are mutually exclusive. That device is either one or the other and never anything else. In a quantum computer, that device can be in this strange situation where these two parallel universes have a nexus, a point in space where they overlap. And when you increase the number of these devices, every time you add one of these qubits, you double the number of these parallel universes that you have access to. Until such time when you get to a chip like this, which is about 500 of these bits, you have something like 2 to the 500th power of these guys living in that chip. So the way I think about it is that the shadows of these parallel worlds overlap with ours. And if we're smart enough, we can dive into them and grab their resources and pull them back into ours to make an effect in our world. Now this may sound very odd to you and bizarre, and in fact I am using language that a normal theoretical physicist probably wouldn't use, but this is, what I'm telling you is absolutely correct and in line with the way that these things actually work. We've been doing this for some time now, and in fact we have our own version of Moore's law. The doubling of the number of these qubits on the chip has happened once a year for the past 9 years. So for the last 9 years, every year the number of these qubit devices has doubled, and it will continue to do so. As a point of reference in terms of how fast these things are, in one generation of chip, the one from the system that was installed at USC to the one that Google and NASA have now, the speed of the device went up by almost 500,000. This is the kind of progress that you're going to see with these types of machines going forward. And 500,000 sounds like an abstract number, but I put up a little mental comparison here to see what 5,000 really means. 500,000 is a big number.